Welcome to the Essential Geopolitics podcast from Stratfor, a RANE company. I'm Emily Donahue. In this podcast, the conversation is about social unrest in Latin America during the COVID-19 pandemic. And our guide is Cesar Martinez, a Latin America analyst for Stratfor Worldview. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Emily.
So let's talk a little bit historically. Last year, several countries of Latin America experienced a wave of social unrest that hadn't been seen before. What was that about?
Thank you. Yes, especially in the last quarter of the year, we saw in several countries, specifically Chile, Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, but also some other countries. These were the four major ones. These social unrest. There were idiosyncratic, country-specific reasons for each of the different protests. However, there were also several common threads that are the ones that are important to touch on. One is that these protests were mostly about discontent, about economic conditions in the region, specifically linked to economic inequality issues. Second, about the quality of social services in many of these countries. And third, driven by a considerably younger segment of the population across social strata, but mostly led by younger people. These basically were waves. They were relatively short-lived but very intense. We saw some other countries like Mexico and Argentina that had some other issues more related in Mexico, for example, to insecurity, where while considerably less violent, there were also prevalent demonstrations that led into 2020.
Since then, what's happened?
Well, basically, COVID came, and a lot of these issues became dormant. The underlying issues are still there. Some countries moved in order to try to solve more long-term these issues, like Chile, where there was an agreement to have a referendum where it will be decided if the country needs a new constitution or not. This referendum was postponed as well because of COVID. It's going to be held in October. That diffused a little bit the tensions, but it's just a promise of change, but hasn't happened yet. In some other countries, the underlying topics are still present. Just COVID hasn't made them dormant.
So COVID has made those dormant temporarily, I assume, but Latin America is also a region which has been greatly affected by the pandemic. Will this have a further impact on social stability?
Yes. So indeed, Latin America is the region most affected by the pandemic. We have seen the largest number of cases, and they have been increasingly very rapidly over the past few weeks. They continue to increase in countries like Brazil and Mexico, other countries where they had where it had kind of stabilized, like Peru has continued to they have continued to increase now again. So a lot of these issues now we're talking about are accentuated by the impact of COVID. The region is going on average, the economy is going to collapse around 8 to 10% this year. All the estimates by the different financial institutions show that GDP in Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, for example, is going to decrease around 9 to 11% in 2020. Other countries in similar situation, countries like Chile or Colombia, perhaps a little bit less affected, but by a little bit, I mean recessions are still in the order of 5 or 6%, which are really big. So these economic conditions accentuate some of the issues that we were already seeing in Latin America the previous years that led to the protests. One of the issues that I mentioned was about discontent about the quality of social services. Well, now the different states are overstretched trying to provide health services and also economic relief to a lot of people. So people are obviously not going to the streets to protest, given the different lockdowns and that to control the pandemic. But if anything, the economic situation in Latin America is now more difficult than it was last year. And the deficiencies of governments across the region, and I'm making a very general statement. Of course, we can go country by country, and they would be different. But in general terms, the deficiencies of governments across the region are now more evident.
Cesar, what are the main issues we should be looking at in the region during this crisis?
There are several potential issues that could ignite a new round of social unrest. I think the powder in Latin America is out, and there are different ones that could do it. There's one specific in Chile that it is being debated in these dates, where there's a proposal to allow withdrawals of 10% of the individual accounts on their pension system. It's a very controversial reform for different economic issues, irrespective of whether it's wise or not to allow those withdrawals. The fact is, if there's a lot of social pressure to do it, if the Chilean Congress were not to pass this reform, there's a potential of a new wave of unrest in Chile. We have seen some already little episodes of that. That's one example. Other ones in Brazil that could be related to police brutality, or Mexico with also with insecurity. We have seen some little episodes or smaller episodes already. So in reality, it doesn't need a lot of pretext. A lot of different issues could ignite it again, given the social and economic conditions in the region. So we are looking very carefully at different proposals like the one that's being debated in Chile, or different episodes that could lead to confrontation with police in different countries, or anything that's controversial in terms of reforms that could lead people to the streets or ignite protests. Again, there are different aspects. I think that since most of the region is still in lockdown, they might not happen right now, but there's a potential for that to happen, and we are looking closely at in the region to different aspects, especially because a lot of the underlying issues have not completely been solved. So it requires a lot of very deft political management in order to diffuse several of these issues and try to prevent more of these waves.
Cesar, thank you for that analysis.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Cesar Martinez is a Latin America analyst for Stratfor Worldview. If you would like to read more geopolitical forecasts and analysis of the security challenges in Latin America, you can subscribe to Stratfor Worldview, the world's leading geopolitical intelligence platform and part of the RANE network. There's a special rate for podcast listeners. Go to stratfor.com/podcast offer. That's all one word, stratfor.com/podcast offer. I'm Emily Donahue. Thanks for listening.